I'm Edie Lush, and I'm here inside the Hub Culture studio in Davos. It's 2019, and I've got a repeat guest. Thanks for coming back.
Thank you for having me.
Nathalie Munyampenda, she's the managing director of the next Einstein Forum. So a year ago, we were talking here, and I think there were 21% officially in the official delegation at the World Economic Forum behind us. To be specific, the WEF doesn't control those populations. Those come from the members. And of the populations that it has control over, the YGLs, the Shapers, the WEF does better. But if we just broaden it out and sort of look down the street this way, how are we doing this year compared to last year in terms of participation of women and in the field you work in technology?
So the numbers vary. I think there's more women in the limelight, which is what we want. Role modeling is very important. Seeing people who look like you can be that spark that keeps you in your position. I think, though, the culture is not keeping up, particularly in technology companies, in science, is not keeping up with the view that there's more women in leadership. I think every time there's more women who appear, there's the perception that there is more women in the field, but that's not true. Mm-hmm. And I think that there has to be consistent efforts, not just programs that come in a few times to increase diversity, to increase women, but there has to be a sustained culture of increasing inclusion and more women in the tech field. The tech field is quite aggressive for women. It's whether you plan on having a family, you really have to think about your career. And I think some women just get to a point and say, you know, I've had enough, let me go do something else. So there has to be a deliberate effort by leaders in the various companies, whether in technology or in scientific fields, to say, where are the women dropping out and what can I do to change the culture to be more welcoming for women?
Okay, so we're going to get to the culture. First, I want to talk about what does work, because you've talked to me about some interesting programs that do make a difference.
There's many best practices in the world, and I think Australia has a few good ones. But in Africa, in the scientific field, we know that a lot of women are dropping out at the undergraduate level, masters, and after postdoc, we have a huge drop of women who are leaving the science fields. And so I think governments, many governments are kind of already struggling with financing research, and so they're not really paying attention to the number of women who are dropping out. But we do have some best practices. South Africa has female-only research chairs, and when that program was launched, the minister was discouraged by academics, vice chancellors of universities, discouraged her from that program. They said, we're not going to find these women in astrophysics, in cosmology. You're just not going to find these women. And they end up finding women for every one of those research chairs. So I think you have to be bold and courageous. And I do believe in quotas and saying, if we're not making progress, maybe we should have female-only programs where the postdocs, so a chair or a professor has to have female postdocs, and so you're keeping women in the pipeline. Senegal also has sandwich programs for their PhDs because they noticed that once women had families, they couldn't go away for 5 years or 2 years or 3 years to do field research. And so allowing them to go 6 months at a time, come back 6 months at a time, allow them to stay committed to their families. And there's also cultural background. You can't be seen to be putting your family on the side while you are progressing in your career.
And talk to me about the change in culture as well that you think needs to happen.
That's a difficult question. I think we see in countries on a national level, the more that women go in leadership, even in countries that have really progressed in this in Africa, gender-based violence statistics go up. Once women get financial independence, once they become, they go ahead in their career, we see an uptick of violence against women. And so we have to really think about what we need to do for the men, because I think that comes back to masculinity. And so if you define yourself by how much you're providing for your family, when you have a wife that is providing as well or more, and it's really good, and the national policy, the government policy is very strict, so you're supposed to be
encouraging and promoting of it.
And so if they ask you outside of your house, you're like, yes, we were very happy about having women leaders, but in your house, you are trying to assert control, and that becomes violent. So I think we really need to be thinking about what can we do to change the culture for both men and women, whether it's gender roles. And I think the Western view of coming to Africa and saying we should do this is maybe not a good idea. People have to understand the culture, and that not all women are trying to be talking about feminist views all the time. Sometimes we just want to do our work and go see our families. I think there has to be an understanding of how the different cultures work. But everybody, all organizations and countries have to address why is it that it becomes worse for women the more women are in leadership.
Nathalie, I really appreciate you taking your time to come into the Hub Culture studio and come back next year and see how we're doing then. And I'm Edie Lush.